put some videos up on elephant bush, also known as dwarf jade, but it is not a jade plant. And there's been a lot of people that have come back and questioned different things about it, and I wanted to get some things kind of straight. Elephant food is a completely different plant from purslane. Some people call it purslane weed, Purslane. It is not the same plant. That plant does have omega-3 fatty acid. Elephant food does not. Elephant food is a completely different plant. It's a different Latin name. They may look the same, but it's not the same plant. Elephant food will grow like a jade plant. Some people have, compared it to a regular jade plant. Once you plant it, they'll go for years and years and years, just like any other plant. It just keeps on growing, and it's so easy to propagate. You just cut some pieces off. Don't have to do anything fancy to it. You don't have to let it dry the ends. If you want to, you can. Just stick it in some damp soil and it will start to grow. Even the little leaves that fall into the ground, if it's damp, the little leaves will set root and they'll start to grow. Purslane, the other plant that people seem to mistake elephant food for, is another succulent plant, but it's an annual. So it will grow, it will throw some flowers, I believe they're yellow flowers, and they'll produce seed, and the seed will fall on the ground and they'll come back the following year. It's not the same plant. So that's something that some people have to understand. You do have to know your plants before you eat anything. Don't ever eat anything if you're not sure. Purslane is edible. You can eat it, absolutely. That's a great plant. We do grow it, but it is not elephant food. And we like elephant food. The reason we like elephant food, it's a nice plant for the yard. We landscape our whole hillside with it. It's so easy to take care of. We have not had any insect problems with it at all. It seems to stay very clean. It can get a little damage from hail if it's hailing a lot, so the leaves might get little dots on it from where the hail hits it. But otherwise, it's really a robust plant, and we really like it. You really should check out our other videos on it. It retains so much water that it's a good emergency plant if there was no food or water around, because it just really holds the water. I mean, the plant is edible in Africa. They use it in soups and salads. They feed it to their livestock. This is elephant food now. It's a drought tolerant plant. It's fire resistant. It can grow in the desert. It can grow anywhere. We do not water our elephant food. And yes, we're on a drought. We don't water any of those. They're on the hillside where we're growing them. Well, I'm growing them in my garden and all over. But on the hillside, we don't water them. They set root, and they must be able to pull water out of the air and into their leaves that way too, let's say in the morning, because they've gone for 2 months without any rain and they're growing fine. I had a couple pieces I left on my desk and forgot they were there, and 2 weeks later I picked them up and they looked like the day I picked them. Yes, the end calloused over, so by callousing over it retained its water and the leaves held the water. They can grow in rocky areas, they can grow in sand. They don't like a lot of water, so you don't want to plant them maybe in Florida where it's really, really wet. They may not do well. You can try them, put them in pots, keep their feet dry, in other words. Water them, but they need a way to dry out, because I'm sure they'll rot. They seem to be more of a plant that, being drought tolerant, likes it on the drier side. That's kind of the main thing I wanted to talk about today, is elephant food, which is also known as elephant bush, is definitely not purslane. They may be in the same family, but apparently there's even talk about changing that. They're not sure if it's the same family. So right now they're doing research on it, but again, not the same family, completely different plants. It's a great plant. It's one of our favorite plants. They do come in a different variations. I'm not going to say different, types of plant. They're just different variations. Some have larger leaves. The older plants tend to get larger leaves, we've noticed with ours. The younger plants have smaller leaves. There are some that grow lower to the ground, but if you hit them with a lot of water, they'll take off and they'll get 6 feet tall. We've had some that were just on the ground and they just took off and got 6 feet tall in a matter of a couple weeks because they got a lot of water. A lot of water. There is a variegated variety. Now, I will say, as beautiful as they are, they're very slow growing. So if you want something that's really slow growing, get the variegated. It's kind of a white-yellow, pattern with green to it. But just kind of wanted to touch base on that because I've had people question us, and I've seen people on, online talk about them and say they're like eating salmon fish and they're so full of omega-3s, and it's no, they're not. They do have calcium and they're very high in vitamin C. So it is a good plant. I mean, the idea that it's got calcium in it, I find that fascinating. According to the reports, it's got some crude protein, crude fiber, it's got ash, it's got crude fat, carbohydrates. So it's got a lot in it. And, that's really, really interesting. But I like the idea that it's got vitamin C. Tortoises like it. They eat them in Africa. Ostriches eat it. There's a lot of large animals that will eat it. And it's giving them their nutrition. As far as my husband, he puts it in his omelets. He'll eat it raw. I don't know how much he's eating. He's picking leaves off and eating them raw. And in Africa, that's what the people do. They give it to their animals and they also eat it raw. I would imagine you could cook it if you wanted to. Kind of has a kind of a tangy taste, kind of a citrusy in a way, and kind of like a little bit of a sweet bitter apple to it. It's an interesting taste. It's probably more of an acquired taste. So, do I eat it? I've eaten it. It's not bad. And I know some people are juicing it. But I think it's a great plant to have. I like it for landscaping as well as nibbling on it a little bit. And just knowing that if there was ever a problem and you had no food or water, you've got something. But throw it in, if you've got it, you can try it and throw it in with your salad. Some people say it's got kind of a lettuce taste to a green apple taste. It's been, they've done research on it and they have found people that have eaten handfuls of the stuff and on empty stomachs and nobody's ever gotten sick. So they've never had a report of anybody getting sick. So it's not toxic in any way. It's a beautiful plant. I think it's just so neat that you can just keep propagating it and it'll just keep going. We started with a small amount on our property, and as soon as Gary did some research on it, he just fell in love with the plant and he started doing cuttings, and he was just simply cutting it off, taking off some of the bottom leaves and just sticking it in the ground everywhere. And now we have an entire hillside of elephant food. And then we had another hillside that had nothing on it. So I stuck some pieces there and they're huge now. We're talking in 3 years. So the green ones, the normal variety, will grow really, really quick. Anytime you alter a plant, you seem to notice sometimes that it may not grow as the original. And of course, being green and white, it's not going to grow as fast because it doesn't utilize the sun like the green would. But it's a pretty plant. I had a very, very small, tiny little piece of variegated and it never really grew. It's sitting out there somewhere, but it never really grew. And there's no reason for me to have the variegated. We've got the green. We like the green. It's a hardy plant. It's interesting to know it's edible, and yet I don't see birds eat it, which is interesting. So the birds don't have any taste for it. like I said, it's totally untouched. We had read and heard that it was on the rare side for it to flower. I don't know how true that is because ours flowers like mad. We have pink flowers everywhere, and the bees and the butterflies and moths, they all love the flowers. So ours do flower. As far as collecting seed, I don't know if they throw seed. They probably do, but there'd be no reason for us to go hunting seed when you just take any cutting. And the cutting could be, like I said, as small as leaves, throwing some broken off leaves on some damp soil and keeping it damp, which we don't do, but that's one way of growing it, to taking large stems. I saw my husband cut off some pieces in areas that he didn't want the elephant food to grow, and it was like 3 foot tall, and he took a 3 foot tall piece, stuck it in the ground, and it just kept on going. So it's an interesting plant. Keep in mind it is a completely different plant than the purslane. The purslane, which is Portulaca, and then the next word is Oleracea, that plant is edible. So if you wanted to grow that, again, that is an annual. It will die out. It's not something you're going to put in your garden as a landscape plant because it's just going to die out. Now the regular jade plant, whatever you do with that, as you know, some people like it, that is not edible. It's actually toxic. I've had some people come back and say, oh, their cat ate it and their cat's fine. Well, I'm glad their cat's fine because one of our dogs ate it and ended up at the vet and was very, very sick from it. It's not an edible plant. It is toxic. And if you Google it, you will find that it will say on Google, you can look it up and they will tell you that it is toxic to many animals. As far as people, well, let's just put it this way. People aren't eating the plant. But if you look it up, I don't know if they would consider it poisonous, but they do consider it toxic. So we have been pulling it out. We don't want it growing with our pets. It's got a toxicity for humans and pets. I don't know if it's going to kill them. It depends on the individual animal. It can cause burning on, and itching on the skin for some animals, and so it can cause vomiting for some animals. So again, that's the jade plant. That's a completely different plant. That one, the Latin name is Crassula, and then it's usually Ovata. That's a different plant. It can be toxic. We're actually slowly getting it out. We had it all over the property too because that's another one that grows just like the elephant food. You break a piece off, piece breaks off, falls on the ground, it will grow. Most dogs don't eat it, so there's usually not a problem. It's not like oleander or something. It's really usually not an issue. A lot of people grow it. Most animals don't like the taste. They're not going to bother with it. But don't ever try to eat that or put that in a salad. That's got the big fat green leaves. That one's got no vitamins for you. It's quite the opposite. I think you'll end up at the doctor's if you try to eat that. Again, with anything you grow, just be sure you know what you're growing. Elephant food is very different. It grows, let's use the word spindly. That's kind of an odd thing. It grows straight stems, depending on the age. The stem can be purplish with the leaves green. The leaves are very small. They can be a little bit bigger. Some of the older plants have a little bit bigger leaves. It looks like a mini jade. It's very easy. If you're in doubt, just Google elephant food or elephant bush plant. If you Google elephant food, you'll get a bunch of elephants showing up on Google. Make sure you put the plant. You'll see it and you'll go, oh yeah, I've got it. Everybody knows pretty much what jade plant looks like. Elephant food is completely different. And elephant food is hardier than a jade plant. You cut off a piece of jade plant and leave it lay, let's say if I left that on my desk, it would dry up. The leaves would shrivel up. Where elephant food, that plant, that will last a long time. Even if it starts to dry up, you stick it in the ground, it'll grow. So that's the difference. Again, your elephant food is edible. It's a good plant to have. We really like it, and we'll get some more videos up. I'll probably get up a video soon of Gary eating it. So with that, any questions, ask me, and if you know something more, tell me. I'd love to learn more. It's really difficult to get a lot of information, but there are some really good places you can get some information on it. So anyways, always looking forward to questions and comments, and if you like what we're doing, please like and subscribe. And if you want to know when I put things up, just when you subscribe, hit that little bell. And if you get tired of hearing from me, hit the bell again, and then you won't get, prompted every time I put something up. So with that, have a great day. And don't forget to eat what you grow. Bye-bye.